Sometimes, by the time the credits begin to roll on a movie, there are still mysteries left to ponder. These may revolve around plot holes, but may also just be a product of certain parts of the story not being explained in great detail, or even at all. Ambiguity is a powerful tool in cinema, and whether done well or not so much, a question to ponder can drive audiences crazy. I'm Adam, this is What Culture, and here are 10 movie mysteries that will likely never be solved. Before we continue with the list, today's sponsor is brought to you by our friends at FanHome. Now then, are you a Star Wars fan, and in particular the iconic Millennium Falcon? Then you need to check out FanHome.
Using the QR code on screen or link below, and remember to use the code CULTUREFALCON.
FanHome gives you the chance to build your very own detailed Millennium Falcon, which is an official replica of the physical prop used for filming, reproduced to the same scale and with highly accurate exterior details. What Culture's very own Dan Durkin and Joe Johnston visited a FanHome event in Madrid and spoke with UK and US product manager Thomas regarding their incredible Star Wars collection and subscription model.
Each different package, each different delivery to your door will come with fully illustrated and edited magazines that contain not just the assembly guides and instructions of how to make it step by step, but also fantastic trivia from the world of Star Wars from each different films, and a whole bunch of facts and figures which people may not be aware of.
And remember, follow that QR code on screen or link below and use that code CULTUREFALCON.
And now back to the list. Number 10. Who was Sophie's real father? Mamma Mia. In 2008, an impressive cast came together to bring the Mamma Mia musical to the big screen, and it presented a genuinely compelling mystery that is still unsolved to this day. Amanda Seyfried's Sophie was getting married and wanted to invite her father to the wedding. The issue? She didn't know who her father was. After going through her mother's diaries, she narrowed it down to 3 candidates who were all invited to the big day under the guise that they were Sophie's father themselves. Through the twists and turns of the movie, interspersed with spontaneous singing and dancing, there was no definitive answer as to who Sophie's biological father was. All 3 men, Harry, Bill, and Sam, decided that they were happy being 1/3 of a father to Sophie, which is lovely and heartwarming, but it does leave audiences with a big question. Amanda Seyfried herself previously said she hoped that Bill was Sophie's father. However, even the sequel didn't confirm what everyone wanted to know. The identity of her father wasn't really the point of the movie, but still, it would be nice to know. Number 9. What exactly is the Veil? Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. The wizarding world is something so vast and full of lore that there are bound to be inconsistencies and plot holes. One thing that has never been the focus of such an explanation, however, is the Veil. This magical artifact was kept within the Department of Mysteries and was seemingly a gateway of sorts between life and death. However, there's never been a true and comprehensive explanation as to what it actually is. As Sirius Black was killed by Bellatrix, he fell through the Veil and almost faded away. If he was intended to be killed, he could have just been killed. So there was clearly some thought to the Veil, and likely a reason that it has been kept quiet all these years. This has been a mystery that has been discussed by fans of the books and movies alike for years at this point, and if there was going to be an answer put forth, it likely would have been by now. Instead, Harry Potter fans will have to make do with the scraps of information they can gather from the books, but without being able to make a clear picture. Number 8. Why did the birds stop the birds? Alfred Hitchcock was nothing short of a master of his craft, and after the huge success of Psycho turned his attention to the birds. The story makes villains out of ordinary birds who suddenly begin to viciously attack the humans around them. Though not necessarily clear from the movie itself, Hitchcock did give reasons for the birds' attacks. They resented the humans for taking nature for granted. What a powerful and terrifying message to send. But as creepy as the entire movie is, there is no part of it as unnerving as the ending. Forget seeing characters pecked to within an inch of their lives. The scariest part of the movie is actually when the birds stopped. The Brenner family packed up the car to head to San Francisco, but as they drove away, the birds simply calmly watched them drive away. The chaos stopped as suddenly as it started, but for no discernible reason. This ending is left open to interpretation and is far more disturbing than any conclusive ending could ever have been. Number 7. Did Ray die in Bruges? In Bruges is about as dark as a dark comedy can get. The story revolves around two hitmen who are sent to the titular Belgian city to hide out after a job goes wrong and one of them mistakenly shoots and kills a small child. Throughout their time in Bruges, Colin Farrell's Ray struggles to come to terms with what's happened and contemplates suicide. He goes so far as to put a gun to his head, only for Brendan Gleeson's Ken to save his life. You'd be forgiven for thinking that laughs in a movie like this would be few and far between, but Martin McDonagh manages to inject a surprising amount of humour. It even ends on something of a sarcastic note. After Ray has been shot multiple times in the final shootout, he is lifted into an ambulance, musing that if hell was anything like Bruges, he really hoped he didn't die. Of course, this is a huge turnaround for a man who attempted suicide just hours before, but the movie ends before giving a definitive answer. All the audience is given is that at least he no longer wants to die, though whether he is able to enjoy that feeling for a couple of minutes or 50 more years remains a mystery. Number 6. What did Bob say to Charlotte? Lost in translation. There are many cliffhangers that leave the events of the entire movie that came before it in balance. Is it a happy or a sad ending? Did a certain character live or die? Then there is the ending of Lost in Translation, which concludes with a cliffhanger but on a smaller, more intimate note. At the end of the movie, Bill Murray's Bob sees Scarlett Johansson's Charlotte, pulls his cab over, and goes over to embrace her. It's a quiet, personal moment that sees them kiss for the first time. Bob then whispers something in Charlotte's ear before she smiles, they say goodbye and go their separate ways. There have been plenty of theories on what the final line of the movie is, with people even going so far as to play detective and manipulate the sound, but even then results are far from conclusive. Director Sofia Coppola has previously said that the whisper was never intended to be anything, instead just an acknowledgement between the two that their week together meant something. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what was said, and it's something that Coppola will always keep between the two characters. Number 5. Was Marla Singer real? Fight Club. Not only can Fight Club boast one of the most iconic lines of cinematic dialogue, as well as Brad Pitt in one of his best ever roles, David Fincher's film astounded audiences with the twist towards the end. The fact that Tyler Durden and the narrator are the same person makes perfect sense when looking back on the film, but it opens the door for another possibility that isn't set in stone. If Tyler Durden is a figment of Edward Norton's imagination, then what of Marla Singer? If you take to the internet with such a question, you will be bombarded with a 50-50 split of opinions both for and against her being real. There is no evidence to confirm that she is, like Durden, an extension of the narrator's psyche, but similarly, there is nothing concrete to prove 100% that she is real. There are plenty of theories about Marla and what part of the narrator's mind and personality she could be the personification of, particularly in comparison to Tyler Durden, but without any confirmation from the movie or anywhere since. These debates will likely rage on for many years to come. Number 4. Who murdered Angela Hayes? 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is a powerful movie that addresses a lot of heavy issues. Loss, grief, sexual and domestic abuse, alcoholism, cancer, racism, and suicide are all touched upon as part of a narrative propelled by a mother wanting justice for the murder of her daughter. 7 months after the fact, the police have still made no arrests for the brutal crime committed against Angela, which leads to her mother, Mildred, renting out the titular billboards demanding answers and accountability. However, though this does motivate Chief Willoughby to give the files another look, by the time the film ends, there are still no answers. There is a morsel of hope offered to Frances McDormand's character, as Dixon overhears someone bragging about something similar to what happened to Angela, just like Willoughby hoped, but he was ultimately innocent of any wrongdoing when it came to this particular crime. The movie is not a detective movie, it is not a whodunit, and there is no clever scene at the end wrapping everything up in a neat little bow. There is no evidence left for audiences to figure it out for themselves, because the exact details of the crime aren't the point of the story, and they never will be. Number 3. How did the Joker really get his scars? The Dark Knight. There are truly some iconic moments within Heath Ledger's exemplary performance as the Joker in The Dark Knight. This is arguably the greatest iteration of any character in the comic book movie world, and though the actor didn't put a single foot wrong, some moments were more memorable than others. Right up there with the likes of "Why so serious?" as a quote from the clown Prince of Crime was the question he asked about his face. "You want to know how I got these scars?" He asked the question to 3 separate characters and gave 2 completely contradictory answers. He tells Gamble a chilling story about his drunk father taking a blade to the inside of his mouth, while Rachel Dawes gets an equally unsettling story in which he did it to himself, as something of a show of support for his wife. The third time is when he asks Batman, but he never gets a chance to answer. Even if he had given Bats a story, it likely would have been again completely different. At this point, the Joker doesn't care about how he got the scars. Hell, he may not even remember himself. This just drives home the chaos and unpredictability of the character. Number 2. Did Tom answer the phone? Lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels. The story follows 4 friends, way out of their depths in the leagues of the London gangster scene, staring down the barrel of £500,000 worth of debt and the threat of losing their fingers and more. By the way of a very convoluted story, the friends actually end up completely in the clear of any of the crimes committed, but for the guns that Tom has kept in his car. As he is told to go and throw them in the river, Eddie, Soap, and Bacon discover that they are actually worth £250,000 each. In the same way, the Italian job ends with the van full of gold and men teetering over a cliff. Tom's phone rings while in his mouth as he is dangling over a bridge ready to drop the small fortune in guns into the river. We will never know for certain whether or not he answered the phone in time, or if he dropped the guns first. Number 1. What was in the briefcase? Pulp Fiction. After an explosive cinematic debut, Quentin Tarantino followed up Reservoir Dogs with arguably his strongest and most iconic movie to date. Pulp Fiction, even almost 3 decades later, is widely regarded as one of the director's finest ever outings. The one central character that connected the different threads throughout the movie was Marcellus Wallace, who sent Jules and Vincent to retrieve his briefcase from Big Brain Brett and co. This was so obviously something incredibly important, but the movie resists the temptation of actually revealing what was inside. The closest audiences got to said reveal was when Vincent looked inside. His face lit up in something similar to Kiss Me Deadly, but still no peek for the camera. To say that this was such an important plot point for the movie, you'd be forgiven for expecting to find out exactly why Wallace was so keen to retrieve the briefcase, but absolutely no closure was given. Even now, 30 years later, there is still a debate going on as to what was contained inside the case. Was it cash? Was it Marcellus Wallace's soul? At this point, it's fair to say that we will likely never know. And there we have it, folks, our list of 10 movie mysteries that will likely never be solved. But please do let us know down in the comments of your movie mystery that you're still wondering about today. And while you're there, make sure you give us a like and a cheeky subscribe. If you want to follow me on socials, I am at Strone87 across all socials. You can come and say hello to me on there. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and the rest of your month. And until next time, take care.